Hello, hello, and welcome to another Pitchfork Dev Diary here on Three Skulls Tavern. I'm Matt, your host, and yeah, this is number 10 of my Pitchfork Dev Diaries. I'm getting closer and closer to the end. I've had some opportunities. Well, I could have made opportunities for myself between this one and the last one to work on Pitchfork outside of the streams, but I focus on some other things I've got on my plate instead. So I've not actually touched this since the last Dev Diary. Today's topic is adversaries. So I've basically put a lot of effort into quite a bit of Pitchfork. If you've been following along, most of the sections are populated, ready for playtesting, in my opinion. I'm basically working my way through the table of contents, so to speak, and one section that I've come to is the next section I've come to that I've not really touched is adversaries. Now, tying into adversaries is the combat system, because most of the time when you're coming up with when you need the stats from an adversary, it's when you are needing their stats for something like conflict. And therefore, I might be doing some combat revision at the same time while I'm looking at adversaries. But the main idea here is that I want my adversary stat block to be relatively small, relatively easy for GMs to come up with on the fly. That means not the full 20-odd skills that PCs have. Obviously, if you want to create a nemesis and you want that nemesis to be statted up just like a PC, you can always do that. I mean, you don't need special rules to tell you how to do that. But for the most part, I want the stat line for adversaries to be, reduced. And there are lots of different games we can look at to get an idea for how to do this. But really, before I do that, I just want to think about really put myself in the frame of mind of what's needed for a combat, because combat tends to be the crunchiest bit of the game where you're going to need stats from your from NPCs as a GM. So really looking at how combat works and what's needed as a bare minimum for that, and then basically just building around that. So that's kind of where I want to start. And in the process, potentially some of these decisions I'm making around how to set up an NPC, again, could lead to some changes within the combat system, and I'm absolutely happy with that. I want them to kind of feel very, very much linked, and I don't want it to just feel like, here's the combat system I proposed, which has gone through a lot of iterations just in my head, and here's a stat block for adversaries, which kind of just is tacked on to the end of that. If I need to kind of morph both of them to work around each other, then I think that's the right way to do it. So that's the plan for today. I've also had some. In fact, I'll do this before I jump into the adversaries and the combat. I'll talk a little bit around chases, because I made some chases. I've had some thoughts around how chases should work, following on from what I did in my last stream. In my last stream, if you watched it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you didn't watch it, basically I came up with I basically pinched an idea from the OSR, which is from a blog, which is to use Snakes and Ladders, or Chutes and Ladders, the board game, as a kicking off point. In fact, if I just show it on the map, on the in the rule set here, you'll see exactly what I mean. Fleeing and chasing. So this is a very rough draft, but basically the pitchforks are ladders. So if you land on the hilt of a pitchfork, you go up to the tines. And the torches are snakes. So if you land on a flame of a torch, you go down to its head, to the bottom of the handle. And I was thinking a lot about this, and really what kind of dawned on me is that this is just a single track, right? Where you're moving, and the enemy, or the pursuer and the chased, are moving along this track linearly. It's not linear because it's made into this kind of winding back and forth. But really, if you could just stretch this whole thing out, and it would still work exactly the same. You just wouldn't be able to have the nice graphics with the pitchfork would have to not block the whole thing. You'd have to have the pitchfork curving around. But you could just as easily say, here, on 6, I could just type some text in there and say, go to 10, right? So you land on 6, you go to 10. When you land on 8, it could say, go back to 2. And therefore, we would have a linear track which would look identical to what I've come up with here. And this raises some issues. One of the big issues I've got is what happens if the party want to split, and they want one person is basically they're either the party have decided the one person who's slowing them down, they're gonna leave that person on their own, and they're gonna go off in a different direction and let the monster or the big bad or whoever catch that one person and like sacrifice them for the greater good. Or maybe there's like the big heroic one in the party, the one who's got the most the most competent in sort of combat, might try and lure whatever's chasing them to chase them by themselves and be heroic, while the rest of the party escape down a different route. And on a linear track, you can't really have people, both parties trying to get away, but only having the pursuer chase the one group, right? Because it's a single track. So I was thinking about how to change this and how I could potentially work around that. And as much as I like this format, that's something I really want to include in chases, is this ability to split off. And I came up with an idea, which is to basically to still use a kind of graphical thing here, is to have a linear track, but have it shaped like a pitchfork. So if I show that very quickly let me open Miro very quickly here. I'll probably have to log in and all that bullshit. Yep, it's not logged me in. So let me do this offline so nobody can see my details. Since this is going to be going up to the public on YouTube, etc. Okay. Shit. Of course I don't have a free one. I can't open a fourth board because I have the free version of Miro and it only lets me have 3 boards. So if I click that, for example, I've got to upgrade. So I'm going to open Mutineer Solo because there's a bit of space on it. I'll go over here to the free bit. So basically, what I'm kind of talking about here, if we turn Smart Drawing on, is basically this. So you'd have like, how's that Smart Drawing? Come on. For fuck's sake. It's a square. Make it a square. There we go. So you have like 1, 2, 3. Something like, oh god, that was terrible. You know, I can copy and duplicate these things, so I'm gonna do that. Okay. So let's click here. And we're gonna do Control D, is it? Yeah. So basically, you'd still have a linear track, something like this, right? And I don't know how many there would be. This would be something I'd have to play test and figure out. Let's say something along the lines of however many we've got here, 7, right? And then at some point around here, maybe here, you've got the opportunity to branch off into 2 different directions, right? And this goes to the end of the chase, right? So pretty much something like this. And basically all of these end points here, these end squares would be so all these yellow ones would be the end. So if you can get to anyone who gets the yellow one before they get caught by whoever's pursuing them wins, right? And the idea here is that what I've actually created is a pitchfork, right? We've got here a pitchfork like this. So I can use the kind of pitchfork imagery in the chase scenes rather than just using snakes and ladders and have it kind of in that shape. So I kind of like that. It means at some point you're going to be able to split off. The party's going to be able to split and potentially go in one of 2 directions. Or you can split the party into 3 different groups to try and get away. And again, I'd have to play around with how many squares exactly there would be. But I think I like this because it's still similar to the idea of how the snakes and ladders system works, but just breaking it out like this. And I could still do something like, let's say on on this square. Well, in fact, we'll change that. So we could still say, like, if you land on this square, whoa, that's not what I wanted to do. If you were to land on this square, you go to this square, for example, right? So I could still have people. like, or have the players moving between squares, I don't know why I'm playing with I'm always playing with formatting. So yeah, I could still say like you move ahead however many squares or something, or you move back 2 squares or something. If I just write that in as text rather than have it with like the graphical elements, the graphical element would be something like along these lines. And I think I like the idea of this a lot better. I can control. Well, it's not about control. I have a little bit more flexibility over how many, like how long the track is. Whereas with like a snakes and ladders board, I'm limited to how a grid would work. So I could do like a 5x4 grid, a 4x5 grid, a 4x6 grid, or a square grid, like what I've already come up with. But I'm a little bit more limited with exactly how much flexibility I can have. Whereas here, it's basically just I could have this and then have some gap at the bottom, and say like if you need to have an even longer one, then you can make the you can increase the size of the pitchfork even more. Or if you wanted to, you could also say, right, you've split off from the party even earlier. So let's say you split off from the party here, and then you just basically just draw some squares to show how you're getting to the end at that point, right? You're just drawing squares in to get to the end. And it doesn't really matter. It's not going to break anything. It's not going to look like a pitchfork anymore with this extra like column on the side, but it's flexible enough that you can do that. And I like that a lot more. I think that makes a little bit more sense. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking about with changes to shit. How do I select all this shit? There we go. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking with chases. So I'll do that offline and have a think about how exactly to portray that, etc. The other thing I really want to do with chase scenes is I want it to be, I'm kind of envisioning how it's going to look as the end product. And I want it to be something that fits. You can print it out as an A4 or a letter sheet of paper. There'll be a handout as like a chase sheet. So if you need to have a chase, if you think there's going to be a chase in a session, you print one of these out and you take it with you. And it's utilizing basically on one sheet of paper. You've got the board that you're using as well as all the rules that you need underneath it. And it should be easy enough that can actually work out really well. And therefore, you've got the little board with the spaces that you can move on it as well as all the rules. In addition, when it's actually made and written into the book, I want it to also work on a single spread of 2 A5 sheets of paper. So there's going to be some design challenges around that, but basically I want to keep it easy enough that would work. And that's it. So that's a little update there. I'm not too far in. It's only taken about 10 minutes or so. So yeah, let's move on. One other thing I wanted to talk around. I've been thinking about witchcraft and magic basically, and I'm kind of leaning towards taking magic out for player characters. I don't think I want it as a default. I don't think it really fits. I've been struggling with thinking about how I can make this fit in the kind of the design goals I have for this game. And the only reason I'm including it is that people often associate fantasy with magic. And that's fine if you're creating a standard fantasy setting. I'm not. I'm creating a setting where the player characters are mundane characters, right? They have everyday careers. They're normal people, right? And if you have the power to manipulate the world around you through magic, you're no longer really a mundane character. You're kind of beyond that. You become heroic to a certain extent because you can do things beyond the scope of what normal people can do. So I'm leaning much more to stripping that out completely, and possibly sometime in the future doing a magic supplement that has some magical careers that can fit in any kind of for the countryside, for other things, but having that not as the default. The default will be there's no magic, and if you want to play with magic, then there will be another supplement for that later, but it's absolutely not the default. So I'm leaning that direction. I haven't taken it out yet. It's still not something I'm 100% sure I want to do yet, but it's something I'm leaning towards now. Okay, so if you're looking on the left here at my outline, the only 2 sections really I have left to do are equipment and adversaries. And equipment I'm kind of planning to do offline. I don't really want to necessarily do that in a stream. Thanks, Mediocre Dad. Yeah, yeah. People, if they want to add magic in, it's fairly easy to hack these sorts of things, and I can always provide advice offline in chat or something, but yeah. So, equipment I'm going to do offline. Adversaries is what I want to focus on here. The main thing I put in here, this is what I was doing in the combat section in that stream, was to remember that vitality equals movement for chase scenes. Now, I don't remember if I actually kept that, because I can't remember how I left it with movement. Let's have a look. Agility. I left it with agility. Okay. So you're rolling initiative every round. And you need agility. So it's agility equals movement. So I need agility. I need an agility stat. Or I could just call it movement. Okay, so needed. So traits needed for stat blocks. Agility. Which is movement for movement during chase scenes. We have vitality and stability. Oh, and initiative. This is health and initiative. Okay, so in terms of just getting started with a conflict, vitality and stability are vital. Yeah. Stability for round 1, agility for round 2, and vitality for round 3 onwards. And I want to stick with that at least for the first playtest. I've talked about possibly changing that. Actions and maneuvers, I can kind of simplify. I've thought of ways to actually simplify this, and also this bit here to kind of reword this so it's not so wordy. Grappling, range combat I didn't really touch. Trauma is also stability and vitality, so that's fine. Injuries. So this is something that's been talked about in another Discord server I'm involved in, and that is rolling for critical injuries for NPCs rather than just, having them die, and how that adds flavor. So like you roll a crit on an NPC, and the crit is basically like you chop an arm off or something. You then roleplay out how the character is like staring in shock at their like stump of an arm, and they're completely out of the fight. And it's like, do you finish them off? Do you feel pity for them as they're kind of like dropped to their knees, staring at their stump of an arm? Maybe they come back later I mean, they're an NPC anyway. Maybe they come back later for revenge or something because you've like chopped their arm off and their life has gone to shit since, that sort of thing. So often just killing an NPC off isn't the most exciting thing to do, and it can be more interesting to have them severely injured. And I'm just mentioning this because it's something that was discussed recently. I don't think I would include it on the stat line. But yeah, basically, if your vitality drops to 0 for a PC, you would roll for a critical injury. However, the way I currently have combat, if we look here at I can put damage in here. Is that under childbind or trauma? Yeah, okay. Whenever a weapon causes damage, you reduce the vitality by the amount of incoming damage and then roll the new value. If the roll fails, you suffer an injury. So let's use an example here, right? I'm going to open Gtov. Which is my virtual tabletop of choice. I'm going to add a tabletop. I'm going to call it just Three Skulls Tavern Test tabletop. Squares is fine. We're going to go with the usual 2 meters. Blah de blah de blah de blah de blah de blah blah. Restrict who can connect. Save. And let's open it. Alright, here we go. So, I'm going to roll some dice. So, we're going to say as an example here, your vitality is an NPC's vitality is 5. They take a hit for 2 damage, so their vitality is reduced to 3. They then roll 3d6. And if they fail this roll, I've got 2 6s, so I'm actually okay. So on this roll, for example, the damage has been reduced, but the NPC is still in the fight, right? Their vitality is being reduced. They are running out of steam. They've been bruised and battered a bit, but nothing serious has happened. Now let's say they take another hit for a single bit of damage. Their vitality goes down to 2, so they roll then 2d6. No 6s. They've failed. That means that character has taken a critical injury. Roll on the critical injury table. Because this can happen at any time, it potentially will slow down play a bit, but it feels a little bit more natural that there are injuries being inflicted on both sides, and it keeps the focus on the injuries and less on these pools of health. So this is basically something I really like and I want to use. So, yeah. As a result of that, I'm just kind of mentioning this because it's just a reminder of how the trauma system works. But vitality and stability are really very important. I think there might be a space here to write injuries. And torments, which are critical injuries and critical, like, I don't know, call them mental disorders, that sort of thing. That's what I'm calling them here. So, way to track them. Okay. You wouldn't necessarily need these at all. This would be basically, I'll put this here, would be blanks to fill in. Okay, then we need career. And basically this is where the real magic is going to happen. I've actually been also trying to come up with how I want careers to work in this game, because my initial thinking was having careers would be, if you could be either rank 1, 2, or 3, you would always start with one career at rank 1, and that would be it. Like Warhammer, you start with a single career and not multiple careers. So it would be the same here. Even though that might not be super realistic, you could theoretically start as a journeyman level in any career when you're in your 20s or 30s. But for the sake of simplicity in the game, I was going to start at 1. And then the number, your rank in a career meant anytime your career could come into play, you would be able to roll that, you'd be able to add that number of pips for the rank of your career to the dice in the pool. So, for example, to use G-Tove again, if you're rolling 3d6, for example, for some test, and it's related to your career, and you have a rank 2 in that career, lo and behold, you get a 6 anyway, but because you have a 2 in that career, you can add 2 pips to one of those dice. So that 4 becomes a 6. And you'd actually have 2 successes instead of just 1. However, looking at the dice probabilities for how that affects things, it became quite apparent that it's very, very overpowered. Even as soon as you get, even with just a single one, because anytime your career comes into play, you're basically 5s or higher are successes, right? And if you have rank 2 in a career, 4s or higher. That's half of, like, if you get a 4, 5, or a 6, that's half the faces on the die you're going to succeed. If you have rank 3, that's 4 out of the 6 faces on the die are going to be successes. And the odds of success for a single success, if you've got rank 3, are just ridiculously high, right? Even with rolling 1 dice, you're going to be succeeding more than 50% of the time. So it didn't really work with what I wanted. I mean, I initially knew that, and I was trying to scale things back where the dice pools would still be small. You need multiple successes in certain circumstances, and yeah, and you only start with a rank 1 career. So that kind of plays it down a bit, but at the same time, people are gonna get their careers up to rank 2. That's like journeyman level, because rank 1 is basically like you're an apprentice, and people aren't going to want to, like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense necessarily unless you're playing a young character. Anyway, and in the end, I've decided to for the playtest anyway, I'm going to scrap that. And instead, I'm going to go with, I'll actually show what I've got up here. I've actually taken, there was a table here in terms of like how to advance your career. I've taken that out. Learning new careers is there. Advancing your career skill, I've removed it. I need to actually put something in there, but I've actually put it up here, I believe. Oh my god, I removed the career table. That was a problem. That's a problem. Whoops. So I'm treating careers as a specialist skill. This is how Warlock handles it. So basically, if you are a, let me look at over here. You're a farmer. You'd have a specialist skill, or you have an advanced skill. If I can put here advanced skill rather than specialist. Treat it as an advanced skill. It can be rolled whenever your training can be applied. So if you're trying to do something farming related and you're a farmer, you roll for farming. It means if you take new careers, you still keep your old... This is the other thing that was kind of a bit weird, was you can only advance careers that you were in. If you took a new career, you couldn't advance that anymore. I'm kind of not necessarily... I might still stick with that, depending on how I do advancement. But the idea here is that, you know, if you're a farmer at rank 4... that's fine. Like, the numbers mean a little bit less now because they're just tied to skill level. Yeah. And you're probably going to start with, like, rank 2. In fact, I think I put it here as well. Yeah, at character creation, your villager starts with one career at rank 2. So you've got, like, a rank 2. And when you're choosing to put skills into your various... you've got basically skill points you can work with. You can actually assign points to your skills. And in fact, I'll put here as well. Key skills... and key and career. Key skills cannot start higher than 3. Your career cannot start higher than 4. And other skills cannot start higher than 2. Yeah. Sorcery, as I said before, I'm probably going to strip that out completely. Which means I need to think about the Hedgewise, because the Hedgewise career was going to be... Herbalist is something different. Hedgewise is going to be kind of my magic one. And if I take magic out, then there's very little difference between a Hedgewise and a Herbalist. So that's fine. It's not a big problem. I don't know why my career table is gone now. I'll have to actually paste that back in. It's a little bit annoying. Anyway. Yeah. So career is important. Career is a number, and it's going to be a number between sort of 1 and, I don't know, 6 maybe? So we're going to go over here and we're going to say career as skill, ranked 1 to 6. And then we're going to put in a motivation. One word. Table provided. And a first impression. Appearance or quirk. An odd appearance or quirk. So basically, when you see somebody for the first time, what's the thing that really pops out in your head when you're thinking about them? Wow, that guy has a massive nose. Or, oh shit, he's got like half of his hair is white and the other half of his hair is brown. That's unusual. Stuff like that. Or he's, you know, they smell really bad. Or they're wearing something really unusual, like, I don't know, a cloak made out of a dog's fur, right? And instead of having like a bear, you know, thinking about like Skyrim, where you've got these people wearing like bear skin cloaks with like the bear's head going over. Maybe it's like a terrier or something crazy like that. Just random shit like that, right? What's the first impression? It's like an appearance type of thing, but it's meant to be a little bit odd or something that sticks in your memory. And again, I'll provide a table for this, which I can probably start populating tonight as well. And that's kind of it. That's kind of all I want, right? So for you to come up with a character, all you need to do is come up with an agility number, right? And this would be, and I'll come up with some guidelines for how high, like what range that those should be, and like what the numbers mean, etc. Vitality and stability. Again, I'll provide information on what those numbers mean and which ones you should pick. I can even start by doing this, right? So if I want a table, I want the table to be. So my table is going to have in column 1, it's going to be descriptors. Column 2, no, that's not right. Dice result. Column 2 is going to be the descriptors. Column 3 By descriptors, I mean, you know, like poor, average, good, etc. Column 3 would be vitality. Column 4 would be stability. Column 5 would be agility. And column 6 would be career. So 6 columns. And I can probably just do a simple d6 table for this, right? So seven rows because I want a header row. So insert table, and it's gonna be 7 by 6. So we want 7 rows and 6. All right. D6. What do you call that? Value, vitality, stability, agility, career. So you can either roll randomly for this, or you can just pick a value, right? That's the idea here. So I can get rid of all this. I don't need that anymore. So if you have 1 dice, you'll be poor. 2 dice would be average. 3 dice would be good. 4 would be great. 5 would be a master. And 6 would be epic. So you're good at something, you're great at something, you're a master at something, or you're epic. Like epic being like the only person in the world who's as good at that thing as you are. Okay. Oops. Let's make this bold. So vitality levels here, we're going to say they're going to range between... These are all going to be centered, actually. These are all just going to be numbers. So a low vitality is going to be 4 for somebody who's got low vitality. And we're just going to go like this. Agility would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And same with career. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? There's not a lot to it. That's it, really. So that's kind of the recommended values to start off with. I came up with that pretty bloody quickly. Yeah. Let's try that. Too small. All right. There we go. I'm not talking about this. I'm just getting it out of my head for now, right? So table below can be used to generate stats. Stat block for NPCs on the fly. You can either roll a d6 to make it random, or choose one of the values. Choose one of the values, or choose a value for each option. Okay. Okay, so what we're talking about here is adversaries. So we have basic stats. Each NPC, we talk about this is actually NPCs to start off with. Because what I also want to do is I want to do monsters. Handle them a little bit differently. Each NPC is made up, is simplified. Has a simplified stat block compared to PCs. Some templates are provided, but it is also easy to come up with NPC stats on the fly. Okay, I want to talk about each step basically. So I want to talk about vitality and stability. Each NPC needs trauma to track trauma. These two trauma values, two trauma stats, not just for damage, but also for initiative in combat and chase scenes. Try to stick to 14 points in total for humans, though this could be increased or decreased to either strengthen or weaken an adversary. This is what PCs receive. For example, GM is statting a rival a rival peddler. A rival miller from the next town over. This miller is a big, strong woman, and so vitality will be the higher trauma trait. The GM decides on 7. GM decides on 7. Sticking to the rule of 14 points, 14 trauma points in total. The GM then assigns only... Well, 7 and 7. It seems a bit high, actually, if you're saying great. If 7 and 7 is, like, even, great and great doesn't seem to work very well. You almost need 7 at the average line here. No, I don't like that. We don't like that. Let me just think about this for a second. You should be able to go between 5 and 9, right? So I think I'm just going to merge these. Like so. And we're going to say... Then maybe I should try and stick to less than 14 points. I mean, that's what... Okay, I need to change this up a bit. I think we're going to change this to master, great, good, average, poor, terrible. Because I think I want 5 as a kind of like as a minimum there. I think I'm happy with that. I don't really want. I don't think vitality or stability should go higher than 9, because 9 and 5 you'd have a great level or a master level of vitality. Then you'd be forced to take the 5 level of stability. So we're gonna go with instead of being 7 average, we're gonna go with 8 for. We'll go with 9. GM decides on 9. The Miller's a big, strong woman, and so vitality with a higher trauma trait, and the GM decides on 9. Sticking to the rule of 14 trauma points in total, the GM then assigns only 5 points to, there we go, stability. That works. I think that works. And also, if you only have 1 for agility, your agility is pretty terrible, because you can't go lower than that. 2 is still pretty poor, and 3 being average. I think I kind of like the sound of that. It does mean, though, if your career is at 2 and it's considered poor, I probably need to bump up your starting career level and character creation, and say you start at rank 3, and you can't actually put that into, you start with 3 and no more, right? Yeah, I like the sound of that. Okay, all right, so we're gonna make the example here, just stand out a little bit, italicized, indented. Yeah, bottom is gutter tier, terrible, exactly. So I'm just looking at the chat for now. What was the average damage you expect an attack to do? That's a good question. So I'm going to be using the standard year 0 thing and have weapons. I'm again going to be looking at Mutant Year 0 as my kind of point of reference. So if I open this up and I try and bring up Mutant Year 0, there we go. Go to conflict, open it up and go to weapons. So you can see here, it's a very simple stat line, right? And it's very easy for you to come up with your own as well. All you really need is a bonus level, a damage level, a range value, and comment. It does mean that there's very little variety between weapons, but I'm kind of okay with that, because commoners aren't going to have access to a lot of weapons, and it does mean if you're up against some adversaries who are like knights, if you're facing a knight, they might have a very well-made sword, which is going to have a bonus of like 3. it's going to have a damage of like 3 if they've got like a bastard sword or something. Or 2 and 3 maybe, or 3 and 2, something along those lines. I don't know. I haven't looked at equipment yet, but that basically equipment is going to have those 2 lines. It's going to be bonus and it's going to have damage. The bonus being, does it give you any bonus dice to your roll, and the damage is going to be how much damage it does. Now, to keep things simple, I was actually thinking of not having gear affect your roll, and only tying gear to your roll if it is some sort of like, how to explain this, like, I don't know, like some really, really amazing quality thing where, you know, you basically need equipment to get the job done, but it's not necessarily always going to give you an extra dice. Again, the idea is to try and keep the dice pool down, because you already get, like, if people are helping you, you get extra dice. If there are any kind of positive modifiers to the situation, you can get extra dice. And I want to try and keep the dice pools down as much as possible. So, kind of thinking of gear outside of the box a little bit from how Year Zero normally does it, there's potentially some wiggle room there to not provide extra dice for gear. And for weapons, for example, that would mean all I need to do for a weapon, or all the GM would need to do if they wanted to invent a weapon on the fly, is just give it a damage value. And this is actually how the OSR works. If you look at the OSR has weapons with a dice value assigned to it. And this, I'm kind of looking at this as a sort of taking some cues from the OSR and keeping things simple, right? I'm already thinking about having some traits for weapons, which I'm also umming and ahhing about, like whether I want to actually go down that level, but to differentiate between weapons. So yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know. That's the thing I'm contemplating right now, is whether I want to include a bonus die as well as a damage, a bonus value as well as a damage value for equipment, and I'm not sure I do. I'm not doing equipment today, though. I'm either going to do that offline in between sessions, in between these dev diaries, or I'm going to spend an entire dev diary kind of thinking about it and statting it up. I don't know yet. But that's how damage is going to be. That's going to be how damage is going to be kind of figured out. Average damage from a PC is going to be 1 or 2. I would say probably like 1.5 maybe. Again, I haven't figured out exactly what I want. Exactly, but you have to remember, every single time you take damage, even 1 damage, your vitality is reduced, and then you roll that as a dice pool, and if you fail, you take a critical hit. So if you have a vitality of 9 and you take a single point of damage and you roll badly, you're injured, and you can potentially have a really high roll on your critical injury, right? And take a severe injury. So it's still, although it sounds like the numbers aren't very big, it still has plenty of opportunity to be quite a deadly system, or at least a gritty system, causing a lot of injuries. And the bigger weapons that cause more damage as a default, like 3 or 4, so we're talking like military weapons made to kill people and not like improvised weapons, they're going to knock your vitality down a big chunk. So if you were healthy and you had, say, average vitality of 7, and that took a 3 chunk hit, and the person attacking was like a swordsman who had a really high dice pool to start off with, they got extra 6s, and they got, say, 3 6s on their roll. That's their base damage of, say, 3 plus 2 additional damage. You could be taking 5 damage in a single hit from a skilled, like, military opponent, right? Or from, like, a monster. That would drop your vitality from 7 down to 2, and you're rolling 2 dice to see if you're still healthy or not. And you could roll a 6. You could get lucky and roll a 6, but, you know, the odds are not in your favor. So I think that kind of, I like this system. I like the way I've come up with this, because it still means that people attacking with small weapons are still potentially going to injure somebody quite quickly. Again, this all needs to be play tested, but it's a system I really like the sound of. Yeah. It depends on who you're fighting, right? So there's a lot of assumptions here, right? So I think we're looking at averages, right? So if the average is 7 for vitality, and the I think the PCs in Pitchfork are gonna do like 1 damage average. Like getting your hands on a weapon that does two damage, I think is gonna be quite difficult because that's gonna be something a little like a step up, and not many people are gonna have that. It's gonna be something big and heavy and made to kind of. Well, I don't know. Actually, thinking about it, probably an axe would have a 2. Like a smithing hammer would have a 2. Probably like a grain flail would have a 2, potentially. It just depends on how whether it's capable of doing more damage than something like a simple knife or something like that. Successes do add damage. Yes, they can add damage. Yeah. But it also depends on what your skill level is. So here's a big thing. If we're talking about PCs and we're looking at close combat. Sorry, let's look at the skills again. Where's my skill list? Basic melee is a general skill. There's going to be very, very, very few careers that have that as a key skill, right? A starting skill. Same goes with basic ranged. Same goes with any of the like archery, ballistics is definitely not one. So there's basically 4, right? Basic melee, 5. Basic melee, basic ranged, archery, ballistics, and martial combat. And there's only at character creation, right? You can put more than 2 points in any of those. So the maximum you can put in those skills is 2, unless it's a key skill relating to your career. And if you have it as a career skill, you can only put it up to 3. So you're like the maximum you'd be starting off with is like 3 dice. And if we look down here again at the adversaries, what I came up with, we're saying 3 is kind of average. I'm not sure that's actually right. I think 3 is probably a little bit better than average. I'm kind of tempted to say you can't really have agility of 0. I mean, you need to be rolling something. So I think I'm actually just going to change this a little bit and say we're going to go here and go with 5s. Sorry, I'm kind of answering your question in a very roundabout way, so bear with me. I'm going to merge these. Do it like that. Because this is basically what I'm talking about, right? If it's not a key skill, you can you're gonna get probably 1 in everything, which is like you're below average, but you can attempt anything. If you're average, you need to at least put 1 more skill in it, which is like if you decide to put extra points in non-key skills, the maximum you can do is up to 2, and that just makes you average at something. To be good at something, so these are your key skills. To be good at a key skill, you have to it has to be at 3. So I think that makes more sense than 3 being the average. Yeah, and it does mean that the dice pool is going to be kept down for adversaries as well because it doesn't go up to 6. So I think this makes a little bit more sense for what I'm talking about. So if you're thinking about it like that, there's a very, very small number of careers that are going to have 3 dice for their for any of the weapon styles. And when we're talking about basic melee, the basic melee skill, that's not going to cover any martial weapons. Like if you pick up a sword, you're not using that skill. You need to use martial combat. You don't know how to use it. And I need to put a little bit of guidance in there as well, because it certainly if someone has a basic melee skill of like 5, they know how to fight, but they've had no training with swords. If they pick up a sword, they still know how to fight. They can probably still do a bit of damage with it. So I'd probably do something like, if you're using a martial weapon with basic melee, and this would only work with these specific types of weapons, then you can use it with like a -2 to your basic melee skill, something like that, right? So you're heavily penalized for using it, and maybe the amount of damage it can do is reduced by 1 because you're not skilled at like causing the most amount of damage with it. You're not sure exactly how to use it, so you're nerfing how you're penalizing the character for using a weapon they're not familiar with, both in wielding it effectively and doing the full amount of damage with it. Yeah, no, it's all good. These are good questions. Exactly why I like to chat. I'm not annoyed or anything by the questions. I'm quite happy with them, so don't worry about it. Cool. And this is good. By you challenging me and asking me these questions, it's made me figure out that like my the values on this table are were a little bit off as well. So this is all perfect. Hey Tony, no problems. Thanks for dialing in for a bit. Yeah. So vitality, I put some kind of information around it like that. We're then going to talk about agility. Agility needs its own little thing to talk around. Yeah, any dice. Yeah, I've used any dice quite a bit before. Oh wow, it's opened it as its own program. I didn't know you could actually do that. That's pretty clever. So this is, how is this opened as? Ah, it's open within like a Twitch window. Or in like an OBS window. That's trippy. Yeah. Yeah, I have an Excel table I've been using for this. But yeah, so if we're looking at, so this is the number of, so this is how many, okay, right. Yeah. So, for example, if you're rolling 3d6, 42% of the time you're going to get a 6, right? The other 57.87% of the time you're not going to get a 6. It's like a success. How many failures and how many successes? Yeah. That's cool. I mean, I've looked at these probabilities before too. Yeah, I'm not actually looking at counting successes either in the tables I've looked at, but that's fine. I'm kind of happy to with the tables I've looked at, and to just for now wing it a little bit. Agility is important for both initiative and movement speed during chase scenes. Agility is important for both movement speed during chase scenes and initiative. Use the table above to to figure out how agile an NPC is. Career. Career and everything else. Might just add that in. Other. I mean, it doesn't seem like a very good table because I'm duplicating all the values and everything. But yeah, anyway. So career. Come up with the career for the NPC. And assign a number of points based on how competent they are. In the table above, based on how competent they are. Come up with a career for the NPC. Come up with the NPC's career. And assign a number of points using the table above based on how competent they are. Anytime the NPC needs to roll. Use the career. Use this career value as their dice pool. If the test somehow relates to their occupation. Example. A blacksmith. No. The players are attacking the party, and the group are attacking a bandit camp, and the lead bandit has the career bandit leader. Bandit leader, and how good are they? They're good or great? They're good. Bandit leader 3. Anytime this NPC tries to inspire their what? They're bandits? They're underlings? How do I refer to that? Troops. Anytime this NPC tries to inspire their comrades, the GM rolls 3 dice. Inspire the comrades, intimidate an NPC, or you can even say, or fight with their rusty cutlass. The GM rolls 3 dice because these are all skills that a bandit leader would be expected to have. I'm actually going to look at what I wrote for Year Zero Mini because I've basically said the same thing, and I think a little bit more elegantly than what I'm putting here. So let me just open that very quickly. Home. Traits. Quick NPCs. So I've said how much trauma they should have. Low-level mooks, regular joes, tough enemies, epic villains. It's different though. The trauma thing's different here. Mannerisms and appearances are something I'm keeping. Well, not mannerisms. So I've gone with mannerisms and appearances, but not motivations. It's fine. And then I've talked about traits, right? So some challenges NPCs are simply harder to beat. They will have 1 or more special traits with a score of 2 or 3. To overcome that challenge, players need to roll a number of successes equal to this special trait score. For NPCs, this can be the number of trauma inflicted if the PCs fail a defensive roll. Yeah, I forgot I did that. I quite like that, actually. I'm going to put this into realistic adversaries. Likewise, if the players inflict an injury, have the NPC roll stability. Modified by the severity of the injury. Before I forget, I wanted to add that in here to trauma. It's also damage. I actually need to put it in here. Injuries. Torment. D66 table based on phasing. Severity rating needed 2. Roll stability. It's an optional rule. Roll stability modified. Roll stability when receiving an injury. Roll stability when receiving an injury. Roll stability when receiving an injury. The number of successes needed is equal to the injury's severity rating. Failure results in being stunned. Number of rounds equal to the severity. The thing I don't like about this necessarily is that I'm requiring a lot of rolls for trauma. So the first thing is you take damage. Okay, you reduce your vitality by number, you roll your vitality. Oh no, I've been injured. Roll D66 for an injury. You roll. Okay, I've received this injury. It has a severity rating of 2. Now I roll stability. And I need 2 successes to not be stunned by the damage I've taken. So you're kind of looking at, I mean, they're all kind of, they're only rolling a lot if you're taking a critical injury. So maybe that's okay because the injuries are not so bad, I guess. Sorry, not so bad. The injuries are not happening so often, right? Well, playtesting is gonna have to figure this out. So maybe I should keep this as an optional rule. Optional rule severity. Yeah, go on. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. If your stability, so there's a severity rating which is equal to higher value than what I was thinking, like 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, and as long as you've got your head in the game and your stability isn't down, then yeah. So if the severity is like, the really bad ones are gonna have like severity 10, right? So your starting PCs can only have a maximum starting vitality of 9. So that means if you roll a 66 on the critical table, you're gonna be stunned. 10 rounds is extreme, so I probably need to take that out. But yeah, I like that approach, I think. And it does mean that if your stability has been drained a bit, like you've been, like your mind has been kind of hammered, then the smaller injuries are going to stun you a lot more. You're not going to be able to shrug them off as well. Whereas if your stability is, if you're kind of have a high willpower, you encourage, you're going to be able to pull through. And that makes sense, I think, as well, because if you have a weaker character who has a really high stability, they're weaker. Like, they're going to get injured. They're going to be injured far more often, but they're probably more likely to be able to power through because they're a bit more courageous, maybe. I don't know. I think that's a good idea. We'll try that. And that takes one level of rolling out. Each injury has a severity value between 1 and 10. I mean, it shouldn't be 1, it should be between 2 and 10. Because if it has a severity value of 1, the only time those injuries would stun you is if you're below it. So you'd have a stability of 0, at which case you're broken. So yeah. I'm just thinking about this a little bit because stability isn't really necessarily going to be drained very much in the normal like, I need to think of other ways that I can drain stability from PCs. I have to think about that. Each injury has a severity value between 2 and 10. If you're stunned, you decrease your stability by 1 for each round and roll your pull to see if you're back in the game. But how do you get stunned? You get stunned if your injury is below the severity value, right? And I don't see that happening very often because I can see GMs ignoring stability and just looking at vitality the whole time, and players are going to have a full 5 as a minimum. Well, I guess it all depends on if they're, yeah, actually, just let me think about this. 5 to 9 is the spread, and I doubt many people will be taking 9 in stability. They're probably more likely to be taking a 7 most of the time, so the average is 7. So yeah, I guess if you roll, the higher you roll on the critical injury table, the more likely you're gonna have a higher severity, and it's gonna stun you. So that would drown it. That would drain it. Playtesting. I like this approach anyway. Might need some tweaking, but yeah. Each injury has a severity value between 2 and 10. So each injury has a severity value between 2 and 10. When taking an injury, compare your stability to the injuries to the severity value. Those are very similar words. Stability, severity. It's fine. There's a lot of itties in here. Vitality, stability, severity. That's fine. I might change some of the wording around. Compare your stability to the injuries stability severity value. If your stability is lower, you become stunned. You become stunned from your injury. Stunned. A stunned player loses 1 stability every round. At the start of every A stunned player loses 1 stability at the start of every turn. Then must pass a stability roll to snap out of it. It could be quite brutal. Playtesting. I think that could be quite... I mean, this could make injuries potentially... I mean, you're talking about a death spiral here, or you're just stunned. You just like... But again, it makes sense. If your arm gets chopped off by something and you're a common person, you're going to be staring at your stump of an arm being like, oh, you know, completely petrified or frozen in place, like can't believe what's just happened. Unless you can get your shit together, unless you can kind of keep your head in the game and be like, shit, like, yeah, I'm going to keep trying to go, like, this person's going to kill me otherwise. But, I mean, that's kind of how it happens, so... This is what I wanted, right? I wanted a game about commoners. I didn't want to make it a heroic thing, and I want combat to be deadly so that if you get into it, it's always as a last resort. But I also want the players to have the opportunity of inflicting massive injuries on their opponents as well, which is why we're kind of keeping it at this gritty level. You need the advantage. You need to be able to get that first hit in if you can. You need to be on the ball and stack everything in your favor if you really want to come on top. Otherwise, anything could happen. I think that's fine. Willpower is stability. So I've even used that term somewhere when I was defining what stability is. I think it's here. Yeah, stability is not just a measure of your mental health, but also your willpower and cool. I was going to get rid of cool and say courage. Yeah. So you can push rolls, right? So I think I'd allow people to push a stability roll. Absolutely. So that kind of covers that base there. And maybe I'll put it here as well. This roll can be pushed. Alright, I like that. Seems relatively simple. You're stunned, you need to snap out of it. You can push the roll to succeed if you really need to. An option to feint. I don't know how I feel about feinting. Feinting is being broken, right? You pass out, you're unconscious. And I don't really... I think that's part of the death spiral, right? You're stunned, you've had an injury, you're stunned, you're failing your stun rolls, your stability is dropping. That's you basically in the spiral of about to be broken. So if somebody just releases you, you're eventually just going to collapse in an unconscious heap on the floor. That's the fainting option. That's you becoming broken. In fact, I've even got it listed here, I think, as being broken. When it reaches 0, you're broken. This means that you're put out of action one way or another. Exactly means to be broken depends on which trait is depleted. Vitality, you're knocked senseless. Roll for an injury. So what I should put here as well is if you become broken as a result of failed stun tests, do not take an additional injury. There we go. Yeah. So normally, if you're being attacked and someone's like hitting you and stuff and stabbing you or whatever, and your vitality goes down to 0, you take an injury and you're out. So, yeah. Hey Magnus, no problem. Yeah, I quite like this actually. This is quite good. And just by putting this little caveat in here, then we're kind of closing the loop there, I think. roll for an injury, and then here I can say, unless you are broken from being... No, I'll leave it as the caveat for the severity thing down there, because most of the time when you're reading this, it's going to be you're taking damage in a fight. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the adversaries. Okay. For any other tests required for an NPC, for any test an NPC makes that isn't covered by their career, roll either 1 or 2 dice depending on whether they are likely to be terrible or average. Yeah, the torment. I think yeah. That's a good point. I was ignoring torment. I did talk about it here. Stability, break down fear, confusion, despair, shame. If you lost stability to something terrifying, this is the bit here. No, it's not raw, because if you only roll for a torment, it's this bit here. If you lost stability due to something terrifying, right? You could argue, I guess, that like having an injury is terrifying. It's open to interpretation. But again, I think this is probably where I want to follow the OSR maybe and kind of leave it at that and just say you're not rolling stability every single time. Hold on. I mean, I haven't really talked about how this works at all. What I've said here is when you're broken, right? When your stability reaches 0, you're broken. So that's your stability goes down to 0. If it was due to something terrifying, you roll for a torment. I'm happy for groups to leave that. I'm happy to leave that ambiguous and have groups decide whether they consider an injury is terrifying, because it could be you have an injury which is quite low on the injury list. Oh, I got a little moth just landed in my hand. Hello, my little stream friend. But maybe if the injury, like if your critical injuries, if you rolled really low and it's just like you got like a mild concussion or something, and you just kept failing your stability rolls, and you've like collapsed from that, you wouldn't make somebody roll for a torment from getting like mildly concussed, which just happened to knock them out. So I think I'm happy to leave that as it is. Yeah, but I think it doesn't just have to be a natural. I think if terrifying could be if you get a critical injury where you've lost your arm, that would be terrifying. Like, I think that makes sense that you would potentially have a torment, which is like a mental disorder, from having like losing an arm. I think that makes sense, and that's okay. So I think just leaving it at terrifying is okay, and just leaving it a bit ambiguous and let people decide what that means. I think I'm okay with that. But here's the bit here. You must roll the revised stability value whenever it is reduced by stress. If this roll fails, you suffer a torment. So I need to caveat here, again, on stuns. Failing this stability roll. Failing a stability roll when stunned does not inflict torment. However, a torment... Failing a stability roll when stunned does not inflict torment. I mean, I can just say that. A torment roll every round until you recover from stun. You imagine that? It's like, you got mildly concussed, roll stability. Okay, I got stressed in the previous scene by this person like mocking me, so I've got like 2 stability. Well, you're down 1 because you're stunned, so roll your 1 dice from being mildly concussed. Okay, I'm gonna roll. Oh shit, I got a 2. I'm gonna push that roll. I got a 3. Okay. Oh no, they were 1s. They would be broken. Okay. I don't know. It just feels like maybe this is a better way to handle it. Is like failing stability roll when stunned does not inflict torment. However, if broken, if you become. Oh, I've got this in the next section. The GM may decide to ask for a torment roll if the injury is horrific enough. Losing a limb. I'll just leave it horrific enough. I don't need to give examples. It's pretty obvious. So let's read this again. Stunned. A stunned player loses 1 stability at the start of every turn, then must pass. So it's not just losing stability. Cannot act. A stunned player cannot take any actions and loses 1 stability at the start of every turn. And cannot take a stunned player. Okay, just to make this a bit clearer. A stunned player loses 1 stability at the start of every turn and must pass a stability roll to snap out of it. This roll can be pushed. They cannot take any other actions in their turn if they fail the stability roll. Failing a stability roll when stunned does not inflict torment. If you become broken as a result of failing these stability tests, do not take an additional injury. Hold on. If you're failing a stability test, you're not going to take an injury anyway because it's not your vitality that's going down, it's your stability, right? So that whole bit there isn't actually needed. Yeah. If you become broken as a result of failing these stability tests, the GM may decide to inflict a torment if the injury is horrific enough. That's fine. Because taking another injury isn't really going to happen, right? Because your vitality is not going down when you're stunned. You're stunned, that's it. Your vitality isn't being reduced. You're just... Yeah. But I will put that statement in here. Do not take an additional injury. Severity. No, that's fine. Comes down with yep. Severe. It is only a flesh wound, sir. At the start of every turn and can only attempt. Let's see. What are we talking about? At the start of every turn and can only attempt a stability roll on their turn. No, it's not quite that. It's because if they pass their stability roll, then they can take. Then they can act as normal, right? If they fail the stability roll, they can't do anything else. So a stun player loses 1 stability at the start of every turn, must pass a stability roll to snap out of it. If they succeed, they can act as normal. Otherwise, they cannot take any other actions in their turn. Let's just leave it like that. That kind of makes it... This roll can be pushed. Failing a stability roll when stunned does not inflict torment. Okay. If you become broken as a result of... I mean, this is... there's so many, like, if statements and... It feels a little bit inelegant right now, but it's fine. I think we'll play test it. I think. Yeah. Right, back to adversaries. Equipment. A weapon and or what are they called in Tales from the Loop? And Vazen's signature item? Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Stun being a condition and it has its own little rules for it. And I don't really want to go down the conditions route necessarily. Because this isn't a game about like survival. You're not going to be expected to be traveling around a lot. So things like being thirsty and hungry and cold aren't necessarily going to come into it. They could, I guess. But not in Pitchfork. That might be something more for the mercenary. Like maybe I can add conditions. That's actually kind of an idea. Is conditions can be something that I'm slowly building on and adding more to depending on the expansion you're playing. Okay, I think it's time to close my window. Too many bugs. How am I doing for time? I got half an hour left. God. Okay. So the next things I want to do, I've talked about all of these. Injuries and torments are just a line. Career, motivation and first impression. Likewise, okay, hold on. If the players inflict a serious injury, have the NPC roll stability. However, do not necessarily stunned NPC yeah, I just looked at that actually on my channel. Let's look at that very quickly because this is kind of funny. Pause. Don't suck up my bandwidth. Talking to myself, of course. Let's go to channel. That's trippy. It's me looking at... yeah. All good. Oh, I'm on my channel. How do I get rid of this thing? There's like another way I can look at my channel, which is look at my whatever. Episode 8, which is the one before this, was a 4.5-hour video instead of 2 hours. So, yeah, it went on for a long time. Don't feel the need to roll stability for a stunned NPC every round. It's fine for them to be effectively out of action. Ha! All quality. Yeah. Thanks. Whoa! I'm getting tired. I don't know if I can do an epic one tonight. Yeah, it was the conflict session that went on for ages, and I'm still faffing around with it, but yeah. And again, so Magnus, I don't know if did you watch the chase episode, the last one? I think you were there. I've come up with an I deleted it. You'll have to watch it on the replay. It was towards the beginning of the stream. I was recapping what I was doing for Pitchfork. I came up with a little prototype here, which I deleted. But go ahead and watch that afterwards. It's fine. Basically, I'm not going to keep this. I'm going to actually make a linear track, which branches out in 2 different ways. So it actually resembles, the squares resemble a pitchfork kind of, and it's a little bit. You can also kind of add squares whenever you want to split people up. And I explain why and everything. I spent about 10 minutes talking about it at the beginning of the very beginning of the stream. So when this is finished, go back and listen to that to see the kind of tweak I'm proposing. Anyway, okay, I want to talk a bit about motivations very quickly. Get this in here. Motivation. What was the other one? I'm gonna call it appearance, I think. No, we're gonna call it quirk. I think it's just a little bit easier to figure out what it means rather than this first impression or whatever I called it up here. Quirk. Odd appearance. First impression. And then equipment. So, I'm gonna steal from Year Zero Mini that I wrote and say... Moth is still here. Excuse me. Motivation. I think I've actually written something here as well for it. Personality. That's basically exactly what I've just written. I'm copying these not so that I'm going to paste them in, but so I know which ones I've already listed. And I'm going to list other ones. Provide a 1 to 2 word description of the thing this NPC wants more than anything else. this motivation should drive their actions. Use the table below for inspiration. There's a table I wanted, I think the skill table. Nope, it was the age table, this one. It's got a nice D66 in it, and I can crib off that a little bit. Bum, 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 bum. Up to between those, alright. Good enough. Oh shit. How am I gonna do this? Tables in Word, or in Google Docs, I should say. Maybe I'll do it a little different and add... Yeah, we'll do it like this. 6 rows below. It's 12. No! I got it. 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 Delete the table. I want a different table. Okay. Et voila. 6, 6, 6, 6. These are 24 options here. And that's the table I want. In fact, this is the career table I want anyway. I don't know why I deleted it before. I was happy with that. I'll just paste that back in. For some reason, I removed that. So. And then I think I've still got it copied. I can add it down here as well to motivation. Okay, so the idea here for this table, in case you're wondering why I'm doing this, is that you roll a d66, and then you've got 2 options to choose from. So it's instead of just like you're stuck with one option, you can choose one of 2. And I've got 24 here. I've actually got something I can use for some inspiration on this. Some game mastering books. So I've got this book here by Brian Jameson called Game Mastering. I got it on Amazon a while ago. It was pretty cheap. I think you can still get it on Amazon. I think it's like one of their... Yeah. It's printed by Amazon's print-on-demand service. Anyway, I got it when I was like just starting to GM. I wouldn't recommend it really necessarily. It's describes a way of GMing that is very labor intensive, and I'm more of a fan of lazy prep and not the amount of prep that's required here. However, it does have a lot of tables of things like first impressions for coming up with NPCs, for example. Like this isn't just one spread, it goes across multiple pages. There's a mannerisms, these are first impressions. So there's a lot of interesting things you can kind of look at here for inspiration. So I'll be using that for the next section. Let me just leave it open at that section there. surprisingly, when it talks about creating supporting cast, it has these like first impressions. It talks about their mannerisms, but it doesn't really talk about coming up with motivations, which to me is kind of vital to a to an NPC. Anyway, then I have this thing, which is by Frog God Games, which generally they do like Pathfinder supplements, I believe. It's called the Tome of Adventure Design, and it's just packed full of tables. It's pretty meaty. It's like over 300 pages, just over 300 pages long. And there are tables for creating dungeons, for creating wilderness things, for creating monsters, for creating campaign seeds, all sorts of stuff. But I believe it also has some interesting things to do with... Let me just have a look at the table of contents again here. So it's split into... Book 1 is Principles and Starting Points, which are things like locations, missions, the villain's plan... adventure design general principles. Book 2 is about monsters. Book 3 is dungeon design, and book 4 is non-dungeon design, adventure design. So actually I don't really need this. I thought it actually had something to do with NPCs in it, but it doesn't. So I'm going to be relying on this little chestnut here, which is the non-player compendium, which is a really, really great slim little volume. And it has basically like D100 tables for a variety of things. We have these bits here: names, professions, relationships, personalities, traits, quirks, goals, and secrets. So in fact, looking at goals and quirks in there, goals are motivations, quirks are quirks. So I can really just kind of look here for some ideas behind this. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna look at goals to start off with. I've got 24 on the list here, which is quite a lot, really. So what I might do initially is just come up with the first column, right? Let me just actually get rid of that and just say here, this is merged as motivation. And in fact, I'm only going to maybe populate 12 to start off with for playtesting. I don't necessarily need 24. And we look at the ones down there: violence, greed, fame. In fact, let me put these in alphabetical order. You know what, I might just copy some of them too. So I'm just going to go through here very quickly. So these are for NPCs. An NPC might seek to control. If I've actually got these for the village creation as well, for the community step motivations here. In fact, I've got 12 already. So I mean, I could just copy these, where it's like leadership or control, altruism or manipulation, indulgence or physical perfection, independence, obedience. Let me copy these. I mean, it's fine to use the same ones, I think. It just means that you could have, theoretically, some duplication in, you know, NPCs that you're coming up with on the fly and NPCs from the village that you've created. Indulgence, physical perfection. And these are also lifted from the same book, by the way. So I'm kind of just realizing that I've done this work before. I may as well tap into it. So what else have we got? We have duty is a good one. Duty is what's another element of duty? And we could have like ideology. That's a good one. And duty, kind of two sides of the same coin, you might argue. These are all fairly heavy as well, so maybe we can go for some that are maybe not so... Yeah. I mean, revenge is always a good one. We'll put that as like the high one here. If someone's out for revenge, it's gonna... Yeah, religion is a good one. I mean, religion is kind of tied. There's like a lot of elements of religion that are kind of pulled out here, which I quite like. Proselytize is a good example. Ideology is a good one, that are kind of tied to that. Instruction, where you're instructing people, you're like a teacher. Selflessness, service. So I kind of like that it's not specifically religious in term, but you can make it religious very easily. So you could say, yeah, exactly. So if your creator, if the NPC you're creating is a priest, their motivation isn't religion. You know that they're religious because they're a priest, theoretically. And charity could be their motivation, or ideology, like they're very maybe even like fanatical about their faith. Maybe it's about selflessness or service, that sort of thing. And I'll put these down as well. So service, put service as a flip side of something else. I mean, duty and service are kind of the same thing, right? So put duty and service. Ideology or fanaticism. Again, they're kind of the same thing. Two sides of the same coin. One is more extreme than the other. Which is kind of what I'm trying to go with here. Kindness and selflessness. Wealth is a good one. Are they greedy? Motivated by wealth. I've got that with possessions. Charity. Generosity. Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's kind of what charity is, isn't it? Got some of these on here already that look good. Deception. Deception is an interesting one. Got something to hide. Deception and... Oh, here we go. Here's a good flip side of thing. Truth and deception. Wealth. Possession. So they want one specific thing. Their motivation is to find a specific possession, or wealth being the flip side of that is I just want to get rich. So looking at charity, charity I guess and selflessness kind of go hand in hand. One is about being generous, and one is like not thinking about yourself at all. So I think those go well together. I think I'll just change charity because charity is kind of an extreme thing, and go with as Magnus suggested there, generosity, kindness, and in fact we're gonna go here with we're gonna put revenge here. I'm gonna call this mourning. Nah, mourning's not really. I don't see that as much of a motivation. What about reunion with someone? They want to be reunited with somebody, or they want revenge because they can't be reunited with them. Kindness, or what's the flip side of kindness that I haven't already got? I don't know, it doesn't have to be the opposite. I mean, cruelty. It would be kindness or cruelty. Fuck it, why not? Why not? There we go. Right, I've got 24. Truth is here. Yep, truth and deception. cool. I'm happy with that. All right. Quirk. Yeah, flip side of a single coin. Sure. Quirks, then. I think I provided something. I've provided quirks here in the community. And oh no, I didn't. Do I have it in this version? Aha. I don't think I've updated this just yet. I think it's got a lot in here. This is the problem kind of thing. So this sort of stuff can definitely be, yeah. This is the stuff where there's a GM task, problems and bonds, right? For each NPC that was created, come up with a problem. And I kind of maybe want to stick with that and not have a... a motivation and a problem, or a quirk, which is more like a mannerism to help them come to life. I don't think every NPC is going to need a problem. Those are really for the ones that are making up the community. So I think I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to stick with quirk. And for quirk, I can actually look at what I've put here for the ruler. I can actually copy that. And pop that in. It's 11 o'clock. I'm still going. Ah, okay. I thought there was a... I thought the text had changed. Yeah, it's not 12 point anymore. It did look a bit smaller. So let's... do that. Right, then we're going to copy that table. And we're going to pop it underneath here. That's actually not at all what I want. So the quirk is more like a... what is the first thing that a character that someone is likely to notice about this character? This quirk can be an element of their appearance, personality trait, or something about their I'm trying to think back, how would you describe somebody smelling bad? That's like an appearance thing, it's not a personality thing. I'll just leave it at that. Use a table below for inspiration. I'm going to copy this table here and pop it in, which I've already done. It's fine. I want it above those examples I've put in, so we're going to delete this table. All right. So let's have a look what we got here. It's not motivation. This is quirk. This is probably going to be a little bit bigger as well, this one here. So I'm going to drag this out a little bit and then make these columns the same size. There we go. All right. Yeah, so there's actually a lot of stuff. There's actually quite a few places I can go to for here. I'm going to show you a good example, which is, I don't actually have it open recently, so give me a second. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition. There was Dave Graffam made a thing called the Expanded Character Module. And in fact, the 2nd Edition core rulebook, let me just open that first, has a list of distinguishing marks, they're called. I'm just trying to remember what they're called. So character creation, bring your character to life, and where are they? Down here at the bottom. There we go. There aren't a lot of them, so you can see there's like 5. You're rolling a D100, and they're in blocks of 5, so there's 20 of them, I guess. Some of them not. I guess there's like this one's 99 to 100, strange colored eyes. But there are things that are very flavorful, and it's a big part of Warhammer. Yeah. Dave Graffam is awesome. He's done so much stuff. He's made my favorite Warhammer character sheet as well. It's like his layout stuff is pretty cool too. Anyway, and he's doing a lot of interesting stuff with 3D models at the moment. Although I've seen he's done some like character folios for 4th edition of Warhammer too, so he's still dabbling his toes in Warhammer. Right, distinguishing marks. So there's like 20 in the core rulebook for Wolfrup 2nd edition, but again, I'm going to open this this expanded character module that he created, this thing here, because this is freaking brilliant. It's 26 pages long, and he just basically is expanded on everything that you can come up with. Random trappings. Look at these tables. There's 100 random trappings, three columns for each. So you got like 300. Starting skills, blah 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 blah. Oh, then actually, when you come to the distinguishing marks, here they are. Right. So again, this table is split by. Let me just make this a bit bigger, like so. So you've got these distinguishing marks. They're split between like the 4 different Wolfrup races, so you don't actually have 100. 100 goes to here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 extra, so 104 distinguishing marks. I only want 12, right? And some of these are mild, some of these are extreme, and I think that's okay. And again, I really like the idea of basically giving 2 options here, and not just like you roll the dice and you're stuck with one. No, you roll the dice, it gives you 2 results, and you can kind of decide which one you like better out of the 2. And these ones don't even have to be related, like with the like I did here for the motivations. They can just be just completely random. So picking 12 out that are kind of using that as inspiration, I think is going to be fairly easy to do. So I'm just going to work through them very quickly. Acne, nah. Almond-shaped eyes, androgynous, bad breath. Bad breath is good. So again, I want these to be kind of... in fact, let's start with the Wolfrup ones, because there's less there. There's 20 of them, and I only want 12. No, I want 24. Then fuck it, I'm going to go with the big list. Yeah. So, bad breath. Is that what heliotosis is? Is that right? I only learned what that word means. Halitosis. Bad breath. Anyway. We're going to stick with bad breath because I don't think as many people know what halitosis means. I didn't even remember it correctly myself. Bags under the eyes, bald or balding, barrel chest, beady eyes, beard, birthmark. I like bald or balding. That's a good one, I think. Bad breath, balding, or completely bald. Beady eyes, beard, birthmark, bloodshot eyes, bow legs, braided beard, braided hair. Nah. Braided mustache, branded, broad shoulders, broken nose is good. Broken nose is really good. Like that one. Again, people can make up their own. This is just like a selection. Yeah. Broken. I think there's some crooked teeth is a good one. I like crooked teeth a lot. In fact, that's why I played Wolfrup 4th edition on my Mud and Blood podcast as a player, and the character I played, I rolled twice on that table, and one of them I came up with was crooked teeth. So every time I see Crooked Teeth, I think of Kurt. Good old Kurt. Wild hair, crossed eyes, those are good. I'll put wild hair down here because it's going to be near the end of the... Whoops. Pox is another good one, like being scarred with the pox, I think. Pox scarred. That was also one in the kind of Warhammer one. Let's look at the Warhammer one for some of the classic ones. Pox marked, ruddy face, scar. Scar's a bit too generic. Tattoo, earring, ragged ear. What does that even mean? You're just like your ear's all ragged, I guess. Nose ring, a wart. Broken nose, I've already got. Missing tooth, snaggle teeth. What the hell does snaggle teeth mean? Snaggle teeth? This is my content warning, maybe about bad teeth, I guess. An irregular or projecting tooth. Huh? Oh, okay. Sort of like this, where one tooth is sticking out. Or that, I guess. God. Sorry, content warning if you don't like looking at bad teeth, I guess. Too late. Yeah, I kind of want to... Yeah. I think clothing is a good one here. In fact, I'm actually kind of tempted to do multiple tables here, and maybe to do for the quirk. The quirk could be rather than having. This could be a distinguishing mark, for example, and this could be appearance. This could be. Clothing. No, you know what? I'm gonna leave it as... I'm just gonna include some clothing ones in here. This is where I would actually get this first impressions from game mastering, because there's some good ones in here. There are nine tables, sub-tables of first impressions. You've got build. So it could be somebody who's scrawny or squat, or a huge bulging belly, gaunt, wiry, grossly obese, etc. So I think build is kind of an interesting one. Then you have ears, something to do with their ears, something to do with their mouth, something to do with their arms. Mostly these are physical things. Nose... eyes, facial hair, something to do with their face, like whether they have a mole, a dimpled chin, rosy cheeks, facial tattoos, face paint, branded, pockmarked, acne, a facial tick, etc. And then hair is the last one. So there's a lot of detail in here. And we've got mannerisms too. And there's 7 tables of mannerisms. Which I think I might try and do. I think I might just split this into 2 tables here, as I just did. So we'll call this one. So this one could be. First impression, and this one could be mannerism. Alright, let me finish coming up with some interesting ones here. Let me look in this book, because this has such a big list of things. I'm gonna go with one from the build. So I'm gonna go with Let's roll a d10. Somebody roll me a d10? Or I can roll a d10. I guess I can always do that too. Roll. Random dice. No. Random number. Right, so we're going to go with 1 to 9. 4 is the table for the arms. Remember how many options we have for arms? We have 10 for the arms. 2. Missing an arm. Bit extreme, but sure. You know, why not? Let's do that again. 1 to 9. 7 is facial hair. I don't want facial hair. I want it to be gender neutral. We've already got an arm. We've already got facial hair. 6 is eyes. Something to do with their eyes. 16 of these options. 5. One eye gouged out. Fuck. No, we'll go with a glass eye or a wooden eye. That's interesting. A glass or wooden eye. Oops, that's from 16. Go with 9. 4, 6, and 7 we've done already. 1, build. Alright. What build are we going to generate? 4, barrel-chested. We're going to go with pot-bellied. Bulging belly. Barrel-chested is kind of hard to use for people who aren't masculine. 7 we've got. 2 we haven't got. 2 is ears. What do we got with ears? 20 options on ears. Jesus. 14. One ear sticks out. That's kind of stupid. 15. Cauliflower ear. Multiple earrings. We'll put multiple earrings over. No. That's fine. 14. Had that one already. 7. Stretch. Okay, I'm just going to pick one out. Stretched earlobes. I think multiple earrings works. We could have somebody with just lots of earrings. Wild hair. I'm actually gonna roll on the hair. We'll pick a different hair one out maybe, because this goes into a little bit more detail than just. Oh god, no! It's different styles and everything, like mullet, pigtails, and afro, dreadlocks, unkempt hair. Yeah. Wild unkempt hair. Oh, capitalizing everything, am I? Okay, right. And face. Face is a good one. There are tons to do with face. Let's generate some. 34. Facial acne? Nah. And I've also already got the pox. A cheek ring? Nope. 19. Short eyebrows. A brand on the cheek? I'm not sure how I feel about branding in this. Jesus, this is a terrible random number generator. Google. Min that 38. Generate. 10. Prominent mole on face. Thank you, random.org. Oops. Large mole on face. So we got bad breath, balding or completely bald. Why don't you say balding? That's fine. Because you can have women who are kind of losing hair too. So balding, not necessarily fully bald. Balding I think is actually maybe a little bit too. There'll be something better we can choose. Let's just have a look if there's anything good that kind of jumps out here. Oh, excessively hairy is a good one. Strangely normal. And who's not strangely normal? Who can't be? Halflings and dwarves cannot be strangely normal. Okay, whatever that means. Widow's Peak, that's what I've got. There's a lot of facial scarring on these lists. I wonder if that's just an easy one. Weather-worn face. We're gonna go with the weather-worn face. Broken nose, crooked teeth, crossed eyes, missing an arm. Missing an arm is almost a bit too... Like, if there's only 12 options, I don't want... That's kind of extreme. I think the glass or wooden eye is kind of okay. We'll go with tattooed forearms. Oh, forearms, because I had biceps is another option. Tattooed arms. So, mannerism. Yeah, missing an arm is harsh. I think even missing an eye is kind of harsh, especially... I don't know. I think I might expand these both into being full D66 tables and having, 36 options for the first impression and 36 options for a mannerism, but we'll figure that out later. So mannerisms, I've also got lots of tables. I'm just going to quickly pull some of these out and just say... repeats. Repeats, isn't it? Or as they say in the UK, in it. Says we instead of I. Uses the royal we is another way of saying that. Unconscious irritations. The story keeps changing, always seeking approval. Relentless comedian, wants to be everyone's pal. Talks to self, whistles, hums. There's some good ones in here. Always works a particular topic into conversation. Fatalistic, pessimistic, optimistic. These are all really good. Pessimistic is a great one. Relentless comedian's hard for some people to GM. That's the only problem with it. Yeah. Means you're constantly, on top of thinking of everything else, you have to come up with jokes constantly. And these need to be mannerisms. I think that is a good one, but I wouldn't be good at it. I'm not good at coming up with jokes on the fly. I know a lot of, some of my friends in my home group are very witty. They'd be able to do that, very easily. We've got speaks in questions, stutters, fails to complete sentences, uses foreign words, speaks in questions. I kind of like that one. Tone. Excited voice, monotone, bored tone, petulant voice, perfect enunciation. Speaks as if in a great hurry, speaks extremely slowly. These are all easy to do for GM as well, I think, these tones. So, monotone, or we could say bored. Bored tone. Perfect. Nope. Speaks as if in a hurry. Deep voice, nasal, scratchy, commanding, resonant, breathy, breathless, wheezes, slurs, sing-song, mumbles, formal, mumbly is a good one. Is it gesticulate or gesticulate? I think it's gesticulate. I'm gonna look that up because this is a word I don't actually don't use in everyday speech.
Gesticulate.
That's loud. I apologize. Gesticulate. Okay, so kind of how I thought it was, but I was second guessing myself. Yeah, gesticulate sounds wrong. So gesticulates wildly. So constantly like throwing their arms around. Points. Slams open hand down, pounds a fist, rolls object between fingers. These are all good. Long-winded. Just reading that. Pound's fist is a good one, I think, because that's an easy thing. That's an easy thing to do, and it just adds a bit of flavor, right? You're pounding your fist into your hands, or even gesticulating wildly. I think is also fun to do and easy to do. All right, let's keep going. Speech oddity speaks mostly with the eyes closed. Okay, yeah, so doing this all the time. No, a bit weird. Speaks loudly, whispers, clears throat frequently, lisps, refers to self by name. Ooh, that's a good one. I might go into 66. Refers to self in third person. I think that's more clear what I mean by that. Inappropriate behavior. Belches frequently, sniffs, fits of hacking coughs, always chewing something with their mouth open. Oh my god, I hate that. Always talking about themselves. Won't stop talking. Person of few words. Patronizing. Constantly digressing. Uses foul language. I'm a fan of swearing. Big fan of swearing. Yes, Magnus. I would hate that too. What's with the Norwegian? Ah, okay, cool. Yes. I mean, I can put that in there. I don't know. I think okay. I've got two more to go. There's one more subtype, and I might be able to get one in here, one or two in here. Mouth or eye behaviors. Keeps the lips pursed. Licks lips. Grimaces. Fake smile. Won't look you in the eyes. That's a great one. Won't or not won't. Doesn't make eye contact. That's a really good one. As a mannerism, squints, wide-eyed, blinks a lot. Blinks a lot. That's a good one that you can just easily blink a lot while you're talking with them, and people remember that. Good enough for now. All right, where are we at with time? I'm almost a half hour over. It's not too bad. Let's see if I can finish equipment and then be done with it. I'm kind of happy with this. I'm happy with this. I am kind of ripping off other people's work here. So I probably want to scrub this at some point and not be quite so, yeah, come up with make things a little bit more my own maybe. Equipment. So what do they have on them? And I think I'm not going to necessarily come up with this here. This could be something I'm planning on taking this to Kickstarter. And for equipment, I do want to actually talk about what I want here, but rather than providing a table, I'm thinking of having some Kickstarter rewards where some of these D66 tables, you know, are tiers that people can pledge at. So, you know, you can pay X amount for a PDF, or you can pay a little bit more and you get to populate something in one of the tables, for example. Yeah, and I'd probably do multiple tiers for different types of tables as well, limit the number as well. But yeah, it was an idea I had to kind of make things a little bit more interesting, and yeah. Anyway, so I do want to come up with a D66 table. So I'll put here D66 table for random trappings, I guess. Each NPC should have either a weapon each NPC should have a signature item. This could be a memento or a tool or even a pet. Use the table below for inspiration. In addition, if an NPC has a weapon, this should be in addition to a signature item. in addition to their signature item. If an NPC has a weapon, this should be in addition to their signature item. Weapons can simply be written with the name and the amount of damage. See XX for more info. Okay. I think I would do the same, similar to this, but I would make it a bigger list. So instead of... So got 12 here. Redo this list here. Haven't done one of these tables yet, so we're gonna do it by hand. So this is 18 entries. This is half of a D66 table. And because it's 18 times 2, I basically got 36 entries here. And again, because I like giving people choice and not making people feel like they're stuck with a single option they rolled, I'm gonna be doing like the two sides here. There we go. All right, and we're gonna call this. What am I doing? Merge. Trappings, to use that nice term. All right. Ah, they weren't lined up. Look at that. Interesting. Cool. For example, sword. And X2. I haven't talked about monsters yet. This is interesting. I'll probably... I know I'm half an hour over already. The other thing here with mannerism I'm looking at is that pessimistic is kind of a little bit too... It's not easy enough to get into really quickly. It's kind of harder to come up with on the fly. Like, what does that mean exactly? You've got to work it into how they talk, etc. It's absolutely fine as a mannerism, but it's not an easy one to quickly grab a hold of and run with. So probably do something that's a little bit easier to get into quickly. And that's probably going to be more to do with tone again. I had bored. It speaks, it's been a hurry, and mumbles. Those are all tone elements. Subdued. Yeah. Kind of also not... Yeah, maybe. Here's one I didn't actually put in here. And it's good for at the bottom here. Person of few words. We'll go with that one. Which is kind of like subdued, right? They don't really answer you much. It's easy, really easy to get into character with that as a GM. So we'll go stick with that one. Trappings then. I'm going to leave this for now. I think when I do my equipment section, I can come up with trappings for that as well. So we'll leave that. I just want to talk a little bit about monsters, think about how I want to stat up monsters, etc. for this. Whether I want to go down something like what Forbidden Lands has done and come up with traits for monsters, which I'm kind of leaning towards. Or whether I want to do something else. So I'm gonna very roughly stat out what I want here. I'm not gonna start typing things out like I did for this the rest of this section here for Adversaries. In fact, I can delete all this. NPCs. Blah 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 blah. Okay, cool. I've got monsters. Needed for monsters. Whoa. I want monsters to be unique, actually. So I'm going to take a page out of Best Left Buried. And I think I might only have it on PDF. Let's have a look. I actually have it here. So Mythic Game Master Emulator is this thing here. It's a system of basically letting you play solo. And I've got the physical copy of that. I've also got the variations, which is like additional options to it, and something that Tara Pigeon, who's the author, created to go alongside it, which is this Creature Crafter. The Creature Crafter is basically a way to come up with unique creatures. It's a bit... Yeah, I mean, there's lots of tables in it, right? So tables to do with descriptors for aliens, for animals, animated, elemental, humanoid, insect, supernatural beasts, amorphous creatures, plants, undead, etc. And there are things like, for animal, it could be reptilian, they are amphibious. For insects, it could be pinchers or claws, eyes on stalks. For amorphous, it could be tentacles or inky black, shape-shifting, blob-like, etc. It's kind of what I'm getting at, except this is just a little bit too comprehensive, right? Best Left Buried is an OSR game about delving into dungeons, but it's also fantasy horror. And there are no actual monsters provided in this, which I really like. The section on the monsters basically gives you... Whoop. So the chapter here called Monsters, right? And it talks about stats first, so what stats the monster has, which is probably actually something I want to do because that's what I do with my NPCs. So needed for monsters, we're going to go with stats. They're going to have vitality, stability, agility. What was the other one I had for these? Career. They're not going to need a career. Vitality, stability, agility. Sense. It's like perception, basically. We'll call it awareness. Because a monster being aware of you is a big, a big thing. And that should be it, I think. No. Mediocre dad, no problem. Yeah, I'm over time again, so it's all good. Thanks for being here for the whole chat. That was yeah, really good having the chat. And thanks, you gave me some really good things to think around with the trauma system. So that was really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, good night. Okay, threat level for monsters. I don't think I want to do threat levels for monsters. The idea here, I think, is that I want the monsters to be really unique, and I want them to be really scary. And the idea is that we don't want the PCs to necessarily want to attack them. I think their vitality is potentially going to be very high. Stability, I don't even think they need stability, monsters, right? this is their cool, their willpower, and I can see if I'm saying monsters, but I'm referring to also like normal animals. At some point, like they're gonna want to run away, but I could probably just give guidance for that and not tie it to an actual number. Stability is more like, you know, mental trauma is more for NPCs, I think. So I'm gonna get rid of that. And we're just gonna stick it. We're just gonna stick with but they need stability. I've got an idea. During combat, the first thing you're rolling is stability to keep your cool. And for... I wonder if I should change that to awareness for monsters. So it's either stability or awareness if it's a monster. I think I'm going to do that, right? So are they quick enough to, like, figure out what's going on? I like that, I think. Monsters roll awareness instead of stability. Stability, awareness, agility, or vitality. Okay. Alright, cool. Yeah, signature attacks, definitely. No, it's not just going to be animals. It's going to be... It could be monsters, it could be supernatural monsters. This is where I need to really think about how... I'm going to be providing tables for some examples, right? In terms of... So the thing that Best Left Buried does, which I really like, is they basically... There are abilities for the various monsters, where you have, like... they could be flying, they could be hulking, luminescent, nimble, quick reflexes. And they're basically just, like, attributes or abilities that you give to a creature. They're each like think of Symbaroum. They're kind of like abilities in Symbaroum. Each of them, in fact, yeah, that's how Symbaroum stats up monsters as well, actually, too. Although it has all the other bits to do with it as well. But the thing I'm thinking of here is that there are these traits that you can either roll randomly. So I put like a D66 table for traits, and they're to come up with some unique aspects of a creature, right? So you can roll randomly 2 or 3 times to come up with a creature, and it might be you roll something like it's aquatic and it's hexproof. Magic attacks don't work against it, which wouldn't work in this setting. Or hulking, right? It's a hulking aquatic animal. So already you've got some ideas about it, like, or amphibious maybe. So it's like a giant frog. If you've seen the movie The Host, the Korean film The Host, excellent horror movie. It's about this like tadpole that gets mutated and becomes this huge monster that goes around on a rampage, I guess in Seoul, but I'm not actually sure the city is named. But anyway, somewhere in Korea, eating people. Yeah, awesome film. Go check it out if you can. So that's my idea here. So we've got the stats, which are kind of needed anyway. Then we're going to have traits. So D66 table of traits to give shape to the creature. And you can use these for normal animals as well. For example, I ran a Warhammer one-shot using Best Left Buried. And there were goblins in the one-shot. And I just went through the list and I was like, that applies to a goblin, that applies to a goblin, that applies to a goblin really easily. And it came up with like a very kind of standard feeling goblin with some kind of interesting mechanical aspects to it as well. So anyway, I want to come up with these traits to help shape the creature and to come up with some on the fly, to give shape to the creature and come up with unique creatures on the fly. There it is. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. When was it made? 2006. So a little while ago, 14 years ago. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I used to have it on DVD, but I think I got rid of some of my DVDs when I moved, and I don't think I have it anymore. Anyway, so D66 table of traits to give shape to the creature and come up with unique creatures on the fly. I think a thing that could be cool would be, so this also has like monster moods. You can roll for a mood, like so it says here, this is Best Left Buried I'm looking at. Not every monster should attack on sight. Best Left Buried will become very lethal if that is the case. If you need ideas, assign a monster to one of the below categories and roll randomly when it is first encountered to see what it's doing or what its mood is. This idea is stolen from Troika, which rocks. I haven't looked at Troika yet. It's on the list to look at for Mud and Blood, but yeah, we're not there yet. So I might actually look at Troika as well. But this has, like, for example, the categories are General, Abomination, a Great Beast, a Critter, Tribals, Constructs, Cultists, Guards, Civilians, Brigands, Otherworlders, etc. Well, that's all of them. And if we pick one at random, if we go with a Great Beast, like a Dragon or a Manticore, it's a 1 to 6. You're rolling d6 each time. And the options for the Great Beast are sleepy, satiated, bored, hungry, ravenous, or enraged. That's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. So we'll go with D6 table of monster moods. And I could probably just come up with Best Left Buried for inspiration. I'll look at what Troika does there. I like that. And then I want some signature attacks. What do you mean, Magnus, about treasure tying into monsters? You're reminding me of something, though, which is monster parts. Oh, there's another... Hold on. There's another thing I want to look at as well. Oh, nothing. Treasure for defeating a monster? Remember, these are people, the PCs in this game are in their own village, and if there's a monster, the monster is terrorizing their village. So the reward is freeing your village of the threat of a monster that's probably eating people. Or if it's some sort of like supernatural creature like a demon or something, finding out, or you could even use like the Vazen and do something like that, where there's some sort of supernatural creature that is terrifying your village, and no one else is going to help you, so you've got to figure it out yourself. Either kill it or stop it somehow. I don't think treasure doesn't necessarily come into it. It's not really a reward. It's like the, it's what you need. It's the necessary thing to save your village, kind of. So what I was going to look at is a Cthulhu game called. Oh my god, my mind has just gone blank. The Cthulhu Hack. In the Cthulhu Hack, there is a supplement called... I'm trying to find it here. From Unformed Realms, I believe? Yeah, this is it. From Unformed Realms. You see my name there on the watermark. And this is basically how you come up with Cthulhu monsters by rolling, and there's on the very back of it, it has this like summary. Let me just show it on a 2-page spread. Look at this. So you've got all these traits: extremities, senses, skeleton, fluids, appearance, other features. 6 there, and then you roll another 6. 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and there's some extra things too, right? So if I was to just roll like a D66, look at the number of options there. It's huge. It's like almost like a D666 table. It is a D66 table because you roll a 1, and then another one is limbs, and then again for another limbs thing. So I'm gonna roll a D66 just to show you how it works here. We got 3 different colored dice, Forbidden Lands dice. We're going to say the black is the first one, the red is the second one, and the white is the last one. We got a 6, 3, 4. That means other features form Ophidian. Okay, but I can also go to that section here. Other features form Ophidian. The horrors have thin, limbless bodies, or at least bodies with retractable limbs, with linear organs running the length of its body and an internal skeleton. As well as normal senses, the Ophidian horror can detect heat with fleshy membranes about its face and taste odors with its tongue. Cold-blooded, it seeks out warmth and hunts warm-blooded prey. Anyway, etc. So it's kind of a cool idea here that you've got these different traits to do with your creature, and then you come up with like the hook for it. How did you get roped into it? So this isn't included. The whole book, apart from this like obligatory index appendix thing here, is which I can probably steal from as well. Come up with motivations for your horror, like protect their young, protect their birthing site, protect an artifact, etc. But most of it is just describing these traits and what they mean. And I think that is a really cool idea, where you've got this, like, you're coming up with these different forms for the creature, or for creatures. And I think I've kind of already talked about that. That's these D66 table of traits. But what I want to include is, and this is going to be harder to do, is signature moves. D6. I'm going to come with a D66 table of signature moves, or suggestions for signature moves, along with a list of generic moves that can be modified for a creature. So one other stat I wanted to come up with, we've got vitality, awareness, which is stability, agility. I've already put awareness down there, so I don't need to put that twice. So how tough they are. Oh, I need armor. There's almost all A's here. Awareness, agility, armor, and attack. Yeah. That's actually the first thing I thought of with Trilemma was, over 100 creatures, and all I could think was, Jesus, 6, signature moves for every single one of them that are gonna have to feel unique. That's gonna take a lot of time to come up with, and it's really hard to do generic ones. You're right. Like, I think coming up with unique ones anyway is hard, but I think coming up with generic ones, I can do that fairly easily. But then it's just a case of, here's a bunch of generic ones. Spice them, like grab some, spice them up, but ultimately I can probably look at Forbidden Lands, and when Trilemma Adventures comes out, the bestiary for that, which I am a Kickstarter backer of, looking into that and seeing if there's anything I can kind of borrow from that as well, in terms of similar themes in terms of what those moves are, and is it talking about is it a biting attack, is it a some sort of like throwing attack where they're throwing people around, swallowing attack, things like that. So I can kind of simplify these things down a little bit. Yeah, so I think that's what I want to do. Monster parts is basically equipment. Similar D66 table, similar to traits. Use this to come up with an alchemical piece of anatomy that can be extracted from the creature. That characters can try to extract from the creature. Okay, I think this is optional. I'm not sure this will make it into the because I don't want this. This isn't a game about monster hunting, so it's more about defeating the monsters. I kind of think that's a cool idea, the monster parts, but there could be a future supplement that I'm making for this, which is basically I'm going to be doing mercenaries. Maybe I can come up with monster hunters, and then it's like there are monsters in this setting, so if you want to hunt monsters, then go for it. Then people can also use this system for games that are all about hunting monsters, or in settings where that's a possibility, like Simbaroom, for example, where you know, there are lots of monsters in there. Or Best Left Buried, for example. If people don't want to use Best Left Buried's got a very cool system actually, but if you didn't want to use that, then yeah. Yeah, slams and ferocious attacks. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just like you got to come up with a bit of flavor for that, but also why not? You don't necessarily read the text for an attack anyway during a session. You want to try and wing it a little bit. So I think going the kind of thinking of it like as an OSR route and thinking, right, these signature attacks need to be applicable to 90% of the monsters that are going to be created. They're not all going to be perfect, but they should be generic enough that you can use them. I think that's fine. So good. I think I'm gonna stop here. I'm nearly an hour over. We're getting tired. Whoa, excuse me. As you can hear there. So yeah. Monsters is the next one. I'm pretty happy with come up here for the NPCs though. I think I'll probably come up with an example, a sample NPC. So we're gonna go here and say sample NPC. Oh, name. Jesus, how could I forget a name? Straight into the stat block. Blah, blah. Provide a name table.